Echoes of the Unforgiven. In the quiet town of Havenbrook, nestled among rolling hills and tranquil meadows, lived a man named Samuel. Samuel was an unassuming figure, a loner haunted by a secret he carried like a heavy burden. Years ago, in a moment of uncontrollable rage, he had taken a life, that of another man named Edward. The memory of that fateful night had never left him. The weight of guilt had settled in his chest, a constant reminder of the life he had snuffed out. Samuel had buried the body in a shallow grave, and with it, he believed he had buried his sins as well. But in the depths of his heart, he knew he could never escape the truth. Years passed, and Havenbrook carried on in its usual quiet rhythm. Yet, as Samuel's hair grayed and lines etched his face, a feeling of unease began to gnaw at him. It started as a whisper at the edge of his consciousness, a sensation of being watched when he was alone in his dimly lit home. The whisper grew louder, evolving into a haunting voice that seemed to echo in his ears. It was Edward's voice, a hollow cadence that spoke of pain, anger, and betrayal. Samuel's sleep grew restless, plagued by nightmares that transported him back to that gruesome night. The sound of a struggle, the cold blade, and the thud of a lifeless body hitting the ground. As the days turned into nights, Samuel became a shadow of his former self. He was tormented by visions, fleeting glimpses of Edward's face, distorted and contorted in anguish. The walls of his home seemed to close in, suffocating him with the weight of his guilt. One evening, as a storm raged outside, Samuel sat in his dimly lit living room, consumed by his thoughts. The voice had grown louder, more distinct, and he could feel Edward's presence in every corner of the room. His fingers trembled as he poured himself a glass of whiskey, hoping to drown out the haunting echoes that reverberated in his mind. The voice grew louder, a symphony of accusations and despair. Samuel's heart raced, and he clutched his head, desperate to escape the relentless torment. He couldn't take it any longer. He had to confront the ghost of his past. Driven by a mixture of fear and determination, Samuel made his way to the old, weathered tree at the edge of his property. Underneath its gnarled branches lay the shallow grave where he had buried Edward's body. The rain-soaked earth clung to his fingers as he dug, the memories of that night flooding back with each scoop of dirt. And then, as he reached the bottom of the pit, his shovel struck something solid. A cold chill swept over him as he unearthed a weathered skull, its vacant eye sockets seeming to bore into his very soul. Samuel's breath caught as he stared at the remains before him, the undeniable proof of his monstrous act. As if in response to his discovery, the whispers grew deafening, a cacophony of anger and pain that echoed in the air. Samuel fell to his knees, his chest heaving with sobs of regret and agony. He had never truly escaped his crime. Edward's restless spirit had followed him, a constant reminder of the life he had taken. In a moment of clarity, Samuel realized what he had to do. He had to lay Edward's remains to rest, to give him the peace he had denied him in life. With trembling hands, he carefully placed the skull back in the grave, whispering apologies and pleas for forgiveness into the night air. As he covered the grave once more, the air seemed to shift, the weight of guilt and torment lifting from his shoulders. The rain washed away his tears as if cleansing his soul. Samuel stood in the pouring rain, the storm echoing his own turmoil, until, at last, the whispers ceased. In the days that followed, Havenbrook returned to its usual quiet rhythm. Samuel felt a sense of release, a burden lifted from his heart. The whispers were gone, replaced by a silence that held the promise of redemption. But even as the town carried on, a lone figure could still be seen on stormy nights, standing beneath the old tree. Samuel, haunted by his past but determined to make amends, continued to visit the grave, a solemn reminder that the echoes of the unforgiven can never truly be silenced, but they can be met with the courage to face one's own darkness.